everyone, this is Peak Entertainment and we are back again, and here now we have another video for you, and this will be my very belated late review of Blue Beetle. Now the movie was released a while back in cinemas now on August the 18th 2023, and starring Cobra Kai star Xolo Mariduena in the lead role alongside Susan Sarandon, Adriana Barraza, Damian Alcazar, Bruna Marquezine, Elpidia Carrilo, and it was directed by Angel Manuel Soto. Now, Blue Beetle was, of course, at this time, the 15th movie within the DC Cinematic Universe, and the third DC movie within 2023, following Shazam Fury of the Gods and also The Flash, as it continues to wind down, closing the Snyderverse before we see the new era helmed by James Gunn. Now, Blue Beetle was the first live-action adaptation cinematically of the character that was created way back in 1939 in the comic books, and officially became a DC property in 1983. And the story had centred originally around the character known as Dan Garrett, who was a police officer taking on the costume of Blue Beetle and fighting crime. The first DC iteration involved Ted Kord, a billionaire CEO industrialist, taking on the Blue Beetle mantle for so many years. And then we had the most recent version of the character, young teenager Jamie Reyes, taking up the Blue Beetle identity, and that has since been the most common iteration of the character. And it's this version that was taken on by the movie, as we see Jamie residing with his family in Palmyra City in Texas, where after graduating from Gotham, he helps his family who are struggling in debt and are facing eviction. He gets a job at Kord Industries, where the CEO, Victoria Kord, has located an alien artefact known as the scarab. Victoria wants to harness its powers within a human subject, which is currently her bodyguard, and end up using it as a weapon. Victoria's niece, Jenny, who also has an ownership stake in the company, disagrees with Victoria's ambitions, and she steals the scarab and gives it to Jamie when the alarms are set off within the building. Now, despite being told not to open it, Jamie does the exact opposite, of course, and opens the scarab at home alongside his family, and suddenly it connects to him, forming an armour around his body. Jamie then learns that he has certain powers and abilities within the armour, such as flight, super strength, and the ability to shoot energy waves and projectiles. Having detected Jamie's activation of the weapon, Victoria sends her troops in to pursue him and his family. Finding himself and his family under serious threat, Jamie must fully harness the power within the suit in order to give himself enough power to protect his family. Now, initially I was surprised as many at the Blue Beetle actually getting a big movie release, due to it being a very unknown lower tier character within DC, and also because it was originally planned for streaming on HBO Max. And despite its best efforts, Blue Beetle is sadly a disposable, very unforgettable, and another disappointing effort from DC. If I had to sum it up in a few words, it would be that the film is very forced. It clearly wants to be this fun, exciting, accessible family superhero movie, and there's nothing wrong with that, especially when we look at the earlier, darker, more mundane DC efforts with the likes of Man of Steel and Batman vs Superman. Many people, such as myself, have complained about the lack of escapism and fun and fantasy within those movies. So when Blue Beetle goes for the opposite direction with all of its bright colours and high energy and big spectacle and comedy, it is to an extent something to be commended. But it's also too unbalanced and just an overall mess. Everything is just dialed up to 11 in terms of the tone and the pacing and the editing and the direction, and it was overall very frustrating to watch at times. For me, the movie plays like a hyperactive ADHD bubblegum fuzz superhero movie that just can't settle down and tell its overall story. It has some likeable elements and performances, but it's just throwing everything at you all at once, and I just wish the film would just actually slow down in order just to allow the viewer to take in what's actually going on. It's very much in the same vein as the Michael Bay Transformers movies, where it's so desperate to retain the audience attention by having quick edits and CGI explosions and quick quips and one-liners. It actually does the opposite and leaves you even more disengaged, because there's nothing here that is really allowed to be set up or built up. There's no standout sequences or exceptional moments, just a lot of big noise happening on screen, so you end up becoming quickly bored and disinterested. Now, unfortunately, a lot of this has to do with the director Angel Manuel Soto, who is sadly to say on this movie just inexperienced, just lacking the skill and the poise to get a grip on his material. It just lacks the overall delivery and composure that a much more experienced director could have brought to the table. And in terms of originality, the movie gets 0 points. We get constant vibes of previous superhero movies and blockbusters that were far more superior, whether it be the likes of Iron Man, Spider-Man, Transformers or The Guyver. And maybe if Blue Beetle had came out perhaps 5 or 10 years earlier, it wouldn't have been much more of an issue. But at this stage in 2023, with the constant debates over superhero fatigue, Blue Beetle just felt too familiar, too predictable, and just too formulaic. Now, it's not all completely bad. As I mentioned before, all of the cast certainly give it their all, and for the most part, I think in their performances, they're all quite likeable. Xolo Mariduena is an engaging presence in the lead role as Jamie Reyes. I think he has decent chemistry with the most of the supporting members. I would say, however, that there was far more to focus on Jamie's family, with around 6 characters in total, each having their own standalone moment in terms of comedy or action, and after a while it gets a bit too repetitive and actually derails from the main actual narrative. We have these constant scenes of everybody running and shouting and screaming, and it's yet again another example of the overall forced nature of the movie. Now, some of the effects admittedly do look quite good, and I think the design of the suit actually is pulled off very well. There are certain scenes that look absolutely clean and nice, but there are other moments where it's just an overloading in terms of CGI, and again the hectic way that the sequences are staged. We get that effect again as with so many modern blockbusters where you can't really make out what's going on, and again just leaves you once more disengaged from the overall movie. Now, in terms of the villain, Susan Sarandon's Victoria Lord is just such a typical one-dimensional character. She's the standard ruthless CEO with no depth or layer to her character. There's no real empathy at all into what she's actually doing, so she lacks a certain presence whenever she appears on screen. And the secondary villain, in terms of her bodyguard, if you could even call him that, literally has no presence throughout the entire story. When we get to the intended emotional climax, it's so rushed, and it's another example of the film's hectic tone and direction. It tries to have this big personal moment, but because the movie doesn't take the time to really follow it through, I just ended up shrugging my shoulders. And again, it didn't really resonate at all because the movie right throughout is so impatient in trying to build anything significant. So when we look at the movie's overall box office performance, and at the time of making this video, it sadly ended up being another big massive flop within the DC Cinematic Universe, only grossing $128.5 million from a $104 million budget, once again signalling the overall failure within the DC Cinematic Universe. This failure compounded by the earlier disasters of Shazam: Fury on the Gods and also The Flash, both movies, just like Blue Beetle, failing to gross anywhere near $300 million worldwide at the box office. And in hindsight, Warner Brothers had very much regretted the decision to release the movie theatrically at the expense of Batgirl. Now, I'm not saying that Batgirl would have been an absolute smash at the box office, but it's probably likely that Batgirl would have grossed much more than what Blue Beetle did, especially when you draw in the connections to the Batman character. But as we all know, this was yet again another change in the direction of the DC universe in its current state. And sadly, Blue Beetle, whether attached to the DC Cinematic Universe or not, is just not a very good superhero movie. Again, there are good intentions for something fun and light-hearted. And if that's what you're looking for, nothing too substantial, just something to try and dictate your attention for a couple of hours, then maybe Blue Beetle might be something worth watching. But for me, I just found it very disposable, very predictable, overly hectic, almost as if they had the idea for the script and just decided to overload a lot of CGI in action, forced humour, throw it all at the screen and hope for the best. And this is very much in keeping with how the DC current universe is being handled. So those are my overall thoughts and feelings and very late review of Blue Beetle. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Where do you think it stands currently in the overall hierarchy of DC cinematic movies this year? And do you think it poses much more bad signs for the upcoming Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, which will be the fourth and final film within the Snyderverse before we see the new James Gunn era? Let me know what you think in the comments below. And if you have any other further movies or television series or any other topics within the entertainment and pop culture scene that you'd like to see me cover, then also let me know within the comments and I will see if I can provide further commentary for you on those topics within the future. Please also hit like the subscription and notification buttons so I can provide you with more high quality content like this in the future. But that's it for now. Take care of yourselves and I will see you very, very soon.